I started meeting all of these people who expressed to me how much the show meant to them, how it lifted their spirits during a bad breakup or...
Imagine a bright-eyed little girl, desperate to find her place in a world where words of affection were scarce and criticism seemed to rain down every morning with her cereal. That was young Jennifer Aniston, tiptoeing around her mother's sharp remarks about her looks and manners. On the outside, Jennifer grew up in a city that could have been her playground, Los Angeles, brimming with lights and cameras. But behind closed doors, her mother Nancy scrutinized her appearance relentlessly. One day, Jennifer would be told she was too chubby. The next, Nancy would insist she try on makeup to hide supposed flaws. Over time, these criticisms sank in, wrapping themselves around Jennifer's self-esteem like prickly vines. It wasn't just a passing teenage insecurity. It became the scar she wore for years. She sought to counter this tension by imitating funny characters and putting on silly performances. Even at a tender age, humor felt like armor. Yet every joke masked the reality of a complex family dynamic that revolved around constant expectations. The hush at the dinner table was thick with misunderstandings, and each time Jennifer tried to bridge the gap, she felt that bridge crumble under the weight of disapproval. Entire weeks could go by without a tender word from her mother. So when Nancy decided to share details with tabloids, that final act of betrayal shook Jennifer's world beyond repair. The cameras only showed a gap-toothed grin whenever the young Jennifer tried out small roles or juggled odd jobs to stay afloat. But deep inside, every audition or part-time shift was a step away from a past that felt too heavy to carry. Ultimately, the rift between her and Nancy grew to a point at which they didn't speak for 15 long years. Still, Jennifer carried in her heart the determination to prove that the little girl with the comedic flair could become much more than the harsh criticisms she had once heard echoing across the hallway. Picture a restless teen in the hustle of New York City, balancing part-time gigs and chasing every open audition sign like it was a beacon of hope. That was Jennifer in her late teens and early 20s, fueled by daydreams but constantly met with shuttered doors and unreturned phone calls. She paid her way by working as a waitress, sometimes pocketing only enough tips to pay rent on the smallest apartment she could find. On good days, those cramped quarters felt like a sanctuary, a cozy spot where she'd read scripts and rehearse lines. On bad days, they felt like suffocating walls reminding her how far she was from the Hollywood stardom she coveted. Each off-Broadway role, no matter how humble, was a taste of possibility whispering, "Keep going, Jennifer." She'd walk home after a string of telemarketing calls, determined not to let the word no define her. This was before the paparazzi, before the comedic household name. Nights were spent memorizing dialogue for small productions, only to wake up early and deliver messages on a bike, weaving through traffic with an unbreakable grin. Auditions were grueling, rejections stung every time, yet she'd bounce back, with that same unstoppable drive. It was in these moments, riding through the city to yet another tryout, that she found a gritty resilience. Each set of lines she learned, each callback she missed, hardened her resolve. Perhaps that resilience was a silent nod to the emotional armor she'd already learned to wear from her childhood. Slowly and quietly, the stage lights grew brighter. Bit roles turned into slightly bigger ones. And despite 4 TV show failures, in a row, she refused to fold. Little did she know, fate had a twist in store. One that would catapult her from an invisible actress in a crowded industry to a household name known simply as Rachel. Now, imagine that big audition, your heart pounding, palms sweaty, every cell in your body electrified by the possibility of a life-changing role. That's where Jennifer stood when she was presented with the chance to try out for Friends. Initially auditioning for Monica Geller, she was instead cast as Rachel Green. And destiny couldn't have aligned more perfectly. Rachel's character was a whirlwind of fashion, humor, and heartbreak, and Jennifer poured every ounce of her personal experiences into that role. Perhaps the uncertainty she had felt in her own life colored Rachel's wide-eyed confusion in the show's pilot, or the comedic armor she'd worn as a child, found its echo in Rachel's sarcasm. The moment Friends hit television screens in 1994, audiences instantly latched on to Rachel's romantic entanglements and comedic misadventures. Behind the scenes, Jennifer was starstruck by the warm camaraderie of her co-stars, forging friendships that would last well beyond cancellation dates. Yet, It was her signature comedic timing, sweet vulnerability, and that iconic hairstyle that turned her into a pop culture phenomenon. She was showered with awards, critical praises, and eventually became one of the highest-paid actresses in television history. Not too shabby for someone who was once turned down over and over again. Off-camera, her life was no longer about meager tips and basement apartments. Crowds would roar whenever she made public appearances. Tabloids fought for exclusive stories, and paparazzi cameras flashed incessantly every time she left her home. Viewers adored the on-screen romance between Rachel and Ross, a coupling that captured hearts with its will they won't they tension. And through it all, Jennifer Aniston harnessed her comedic roots and emotional depth, proving that the girl who once rode a bike through busy city streets could, in fact, become a beloved icon on living room screens worldwide. Close your eyes and picture Jennifer Aniston at the height of Friends mania. Laughter echoing around the stage, an audience enthralled by her every line. But then, imagine her stepping beyond Central Perk, beyond the beloved couch, into the uncharted territory of feature films and streaming platforms. That shift was anything but smooth. Hollywood eyes were on her, questioning whether this sitcom star had the versatility and depth for bigger, more demanding roles. Determined to prove her mettle, she took on comedic hits like Bruce Almighty, where she rubbed shoulders with Jim Carrey's boundless energy, holding her own in every scene. Then came smaller independent gems like The Good Girl, showing a striking vulnerability that reminded audiences she was more than just a comedic face from TV. Critics started paying attention. Maybe this Rachel Green was destined for a broader artistic canvas after all. As time marched on, Jennifer dabbled in producing, stepping behind the camera for projects like Dumplin', where she championed messages of self-acceptance and individuality. And with The Morning Show, she returned to the limelight of serial storytelling, this time armed with years of experience and a sharper dramatic edge. Each new project tested her limits, revealed hidden facets of her craft, and reminded the world that reinvention is possible, even for stars that Hollywood tries to pigeonhole. Between box office smashes and critical curiosities, Jennifer cultivated a body of work that sparkled with perseverance and showed a willingness to risk her comfort zone. She wasn't content to ride the wave of her friends' success forever. She stepped off the couch, traded coffee mugs for cinematic scripts, and kept forging ahead. In the end, it wasn't just about proving critics wrong. It was about going on a creative journey that mirrored her own personal evolution. Ever-changing, ever-growing, and always captivating. Pause for a moment and picture a fairy tale romance. Red carpets, dazzling smiles, and the world's cameras capturing intimate moments in glossy magazine pages. That was Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt, the golden couple. Their relationship sparkled with a kind of effortless charm that made us all believe in happy endings. Yet, beneath that Hollywood sheen, the pressures of fame lurked like a stubborn shadow. Their energy seemed unstoppable as they attended award shows hand in hand, embracing the public's adoration with gracious humility. But then came the cracks. Rumors started swirling that Angelina Jolie had enticed Brad away on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Suddenly, the fairy tale veneer splintered. Headlines flashed, "America's sweetheart betrayed," fueling a media storm that cast Jennifer as the wounded angel. She was left to navigate the aftermath of this heartbreak under a magnifying glass that seldom granted her any privacy. What followed was a divorce that rocked the entertainment world. Every photo of Brad with Angelina felt like another dagger, twisting the narrative deeper. In the midst of it all, Jennifer's heartbreak was far more human than the tabloids let on. She grappled with the echoes of her parents' strained marriage, determined not to repeat that history. Emotional walls went up, and a bright comedic star found herself fighting to maintain her light. She dove into therapy, poured her emotions into her work, and did her best to present a brave face to the cameras that never left her side. Through this painful period, Jennifer discovered resilience she never knew she possessed, gradually learning that heartbreak and healing can coexist in the same heart. Though the fairy tale had fractured, Jennifer's story persisted, stronger than ever, as she took life's biggest blow and transformed it into one of her most defining chapters. Visualize Jennifer Aniston gripped by emotional tectonic shifts, after her marriage to Brad Pitt dissolved in front of an unrelenting pack of paparazzi. Imagine the quiet moments when she'd come home from a long day, the hush of the living room broken only by her own thoughts spiraling around old wounds. In those early weeks, she woke up feeling as though she were standing on a stage with no script, just bright lights shining on every insecurity. Seeking solace, she turned inward, rediscovering the traits that once made her comic timing so sharp and her performances so genuine. Friends like Courtney Cox offered unconditional support. Therapy sessions became a sacred space where tears of heartbreak gave way to surprising bursts of hopeful laughter. It was during these vulnerable transitions that Jennifer also bridged an old gap. The 15-year estrangement from her mother, the heartbreak of divorce stirred something within her, prompting her to question how bitterness could shape a life. She decided to lay down the burdens of anger and reintroduce Nancy into her world. Though their reunion was cautious, it brought unexpected emotional release, a chance to rewrite an old story that had haunted her for too long. Slowly but surely, Jennifer's perspective shifted. Maybe heartbreak wasn't just devastation, but also a catalyst for personal growth. The public saw little glimpses of her emerging confidence in interviews and appearances, though paparazzi cameras often tried to freeze-frame her grief. Yet, behind that guarded smile, she was forging a new self, one that no longer conflated public gossip with self-worth. With each necessary therapy session and each heart-to-heart with her closest friends, she stitched herself back together. By the end of that chapter, Jennifer had transformed heartbreak into something that felt dangerously close to hope. A delicate but powerful reminder that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to discover the bedrock of who you truly are. Now envision a woman who has known heartbreak as intimately as she's known standing ovations, deciding to give love another shot. That's Jennifer in her post-Brad era, balancing vulnerability with a quiet strength as she stepped into new relationships. There was the flashy romance with musician John Mayer, bright and intense like a firecracker, but as fleeting as one too. Tabloids buzzed with excitement. Had Jennifer found the one? But the spark proved too volatile, and trust crumbled under the weight of infidelity rumors. Then came Justin Theroux, fellow actor, screenwriter, a quirky balance of creativity that seemed to mesh with her comedic soul. The two bought a home, walked red carpets, and exchanged vows in a secret ceremony. Finally, it seemed like Jennifer's resilience had paid off. They were often photographed laughing together, a portrait of two souls who looked at ease in each other's company. Yet behind those photos, the reality was more layered. Their careers demanded constant travel. Their personalities sometimes seemed to drift like ships navigating different waters. When they ultimately parted ways, Jennifer was older, maybe a bit wiser, but still raw from romance that promised forever and delivered heartbreak. This emotional journey revealed a woman who continued to believe in love's transformative power, even after life kept moving the finish line. She'd always been open about wanting a family, children that might reflect pieces of both her and her partner. But fate had other plans, and Jennifer had to continuously wrestle with the swirl of media speculation. In the glare of tabloids, she wasn't just the ex-wife of, or the jilted lover. She was a person who understood the stings of real disappointments, real joys, and the haunting prospect that maybe love doesn't always follow the neat path the world expects. Through each failed relationship, she emerged a little more self-aware, a bit more grounded, a testament to the unbreakable human spirit that thrives even when illusions of a perfect fairy tale evaporate. Imagine living under such a bright spotlight that the world feels entitled to your womb, where every public outing prompts speculation about whether you're sporting a baby bump. For Jennifer Aniston, tabloid headlines weren't just curious, they were invasive. She'd glance at supermarket stands and see photos zoomed in on her stomach, expressions of concern or mockery plastered in bold letters. Is she pregnant yet? It stung more than she let on. For someone who had once hinted at desiring children, the constant pressure felt like an enormous weight. At first, she tried ignoring the outrageous claims, thinking they'd evaporate over time. But they only grew louder, twisting personal heartbreak into sensational stories. This public scrutiny didn't account for the complexities of fertility, IVF treatments, or the emotional roller coaster each negative test can bring. Determined not to let gossipers paint her as superficial or uncaring, Jennifer wrote candidly about the objectification of women, particularly their bodies, and how the media's fervent need to shrink them down to, is she or isn't she, turned rich lives into cheap gossip. The heartbreak behind her words was palpable. She wasn't just defending herself. She was standing up for every woman who's ever been asked, "When are you having kids?" as though existence boils down to a single milestone. Each rumor chiseled away at her personal resolve, but also fueled her mission to speak publicly about that invasive scrutiny. Over time, Jennifer found an odd sense of peace. She had done everything within her power, Chinese tea remedies, IVF, you name it, to try and start a family. While she never achieved that dream, she discovered a new one: to own her narrative, without shame. In doing so, she carved out a space where she could breathe again, free from the suffocating demands of a world that refused to see her as anything more than a vessel for speculation. Picture a life where the hustle never stops, and one iconic role catapults you to a level of fame few humans will ever experience. For Jennifer Aniston, that role was Rachel Green, and it brought not just adoration but staggering financial rewards that most can only dream of. Eventually, the laughter of friends echoed into syndication deals rumored to rake in more than $1 billion each year. And thanks to astute contract negotiations, Jennifer and her co-stars continued to see a slice of that abundant pie, a perpetual golden ticket. Over time, she diversified. From the comedic hits on the big screen to her executive producer credits, everything she touched seemed to shimmer. Brand endorsements began knocking. Luxury airlines, boutique water companies, leading hair care lines, all wanting that signature Jennifer smile to wave their flags. So you might imagine that a life of such wealth would be carefree, a bed of roses in a Hollywood mansion. But the reality was more nuanced. Jennifer used her resources to create stories and roles that reflected her deeper interests. She built her own production channel, backing films and shows that might otherwise lack mainstream support. The money isn't just about buying mansions and fast cars. It's also a testament to the fortitude of a woman who survived countless rejections and heartbreaks and ended up at the pinnacle of success. Yes, the swanky home remodels and the designer gowns are a perk, but beneath that financial empire is the same determined teenager who once rode her bike to audition after audition. Now, however, she's not just an actress for hire. She's a powerhouse with the means to shape her own narrative. In many ways, her net worth symbolizes the value of resilience, the accumulation of comedic timing, heartbreak, grit, and charm that transformed a once struggling actress into a brand and a force, forging a legacy that rolls on like syndicated episodes playing across countless TV screens. Finally, envision Jennifer Aniston at 55, standing at her kitchen counter with a cup of coffee in hand, reflecting on a life that has spun through heartbreak, euphoria, reinvention, and immeasurable success. She's candid about her choices now. A woman with no illusions left. Someone who has faced heartbreak and come out on the other side clearer, if not unscathed. After 2 marriages that ended in divorce, she's no longer chasing a fairy tale, wedding, or feeling pressured to check the wife box once again. She admits she wouldn't mind a partner's comforting presence after a grueling day, someone to share laughter and tears with under the same roof. Yet the idea of walking down the aisle one more time simply doesn't glow the way it once did. The traces of her parents' turbulent relationship and the territorial glare of Hollywood cameras have left her wary of repeating old patterns. So she stands in a place of acceptance, acknowledging both the endless love she's capable of giving and the boundaries she needs to keep her sanity intact. No longer weighed down by the questions about children, sparked by years of IVF attempts and heartbreak, she feels a kind of relief. She's spoken her truth, explained that motherhood wasn't for lack of trying, and found peace in the path life ultimately laid out for her. On set, she's radiant, diving into producing and acting gigs that challenge her finely honed comedic instincts while showcasing a deep emotional range. Off-set, she's the friend everyone loves, loyal to the EO core and always ready with a comforting joke. Hers is not the story of a woman who has lost out. It's the story of someone who, through love and loss, discovered unshakable strength, forging her own distinct narrative in an industry that thrives on pigeonholing. When she smiles now, it's as if she stitched together every swirling rumor, heartbreak, and triumph into a mosaic that shines with an authenticity few stars can match.